This is the Dog Days podcast from UGAsports.com, the podcast where we hear from former Georgia Bulldogs about their eras in Athens. I'm your host, Dayne Young, a contributor to UGAsports.com. Previously, we have had Keith Marshall, Chris Burnett, and Terrence Edwards. Today's guest is Aaron Davis, defensive back for the Dogs from 2013 to 2017, which had about a lot of things, including being a walk-on at Georgia, then starting 45 games for the Dogs, and that magical 2017 run to the Rose Bowl and to the national championship game. And then we get his outlook for the current team as well. Aaron Davis, here he is. All right, Aaron Davis joining us here on the Dog Days podcast. Aaron, we definitely appreciate your time and willingness to do this. The first question we always ask is if you'll just kind of update Georgia fans of what you've been up to since you left the red and black.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. After my days at UGA and glory days of making it to the national championship, which what a wonderful game and season that was. I've signed with the New York Giants afterwards, and I was with them for the better part of the summer, but, kind of injuries kind of got me. And since then, I just decided to move forward past football, and now I'm doing my thing in the business world. I'm a research analyst with CBRE. I love it here. They're a commercial real estate company, and I'm just kind of doing my thing now.
And we were chatting a little bit beforehand. You were telling me that just there's a difference in the passion around college football and then what you experience in the NFL. Why don't you kind of tell our fans the comparison that you were having?
Yeah. It's just like, I know I did one kind of event with Rennie Curran, who's a great UGA legend, down in it was like Edenton, Georgia or something like that. And it was like, we just went out to like kind of a local pub afterwards to eat, and you just saw dog fans everywhere. I'm like, I'm not sure that I ever see that many like NFL fans, outside of like really kind of like where they're located. For the most part, that's where they're concentrated. But with college football, like the atmosphere is just terrific at the games. Watching on TV is even better. I just really love college football, and I kind of see it being myself being a little bit more invested in college football than I am in professional football.
Well, I think that's something that you have in common with a lot of the fans that listen to this, definitely the people on the Dog Vent and a lot of the fans you had. Let's kind of go back to your high school days, because you have a pretty interesting story of you were not the hotshot recruit. You were not the one that was putting out a lot of the videos that you see. Tell me about your recruiting process. I know you had an injury that really set back a lot of plans. Just take me back to that time around 2012.
Yeah, so even a little bit before that, like kind of 2011-ish, 2010-ish, that was like my sophomore year in high school, and that's when I kind of actually got to start on the varsity, and I was gaining some traction. I was going to some camps, and I was picking up as far as people being able to know my name. And then, like, boom, right before my junior year, when we had our spring game, I tore my ACL. And then I worked my way to get back, and I ended up tearing it again. And that puts me like 2012 to where, I had a couple different, colleges that wanted to have me, wanted to offer me a scholarship. And even like the biggest one was like, I was so desperate at the time that I almost jumped on an offer to the Florida Gators, which that would have been completely different from what I grew up doing. Like, I grew up as a UGA Bulldog, and that's all I knew. But of course, you see Florida on TV. But at that point, I had lost so many offers and things like that I was actually considered going to Florida. And so from there, I just kind of knew that, with nothing left on the table, that UGA was going to be my first choice. I didn't want to go to like a smaller school or something like that, maybe like D3 or anything like that. I wanted to try my luck with the NFL. I mean, not with the NFL, with the SEC, just because I felt like if an SEC team felt they were, that I was good enough for them to offer me, I feel like I could be good enough to play there. And so that's what I did. I worked my tail off. I got into UGA early, and I ended up walking on there.
So you're going through this rehab in high school, and at the same time you're seeing, is it literally seeing offers being pulled away from you going to healthier players? Is that what's happening?
Pretty much. Coaches that I was having constant contact with in the beginning. Kind of some recruiting business that I had set up. Next thing you know, I'm trying to call these coaches back, and I'm, getting to their voicemail. Even with like even my dad or try to call them or something like that, he's getting to their voicemail, and then they're not reaching back out to me, and so it's just like I kind of knew it, kind of felt what was going on, and I just knew I had to kind of adjust the plan that I thought I was going to have going forward.
How difficult was that for you and your family?
Uh, it was difficult. I'll say that at the time I thought it was the worst thing ever, but looking back, it really wasn't that bad. I still ended up getting into the school that was always going to be my number one choice. And once I got there, I ended up making the most of my situation. It's just because, like, once you actually get onto campus, as a freshman, you come in at the bottom of the totem pole. So you have to work your way up. You have to prove yourself to everyone else, regardless of what you do in high school. And so when I got there to UGA, like, I was kind of with everyone else, and I didn't really feel a difference, or no one treated me different just because I was a walk-on. I was kind of embraced by the team, and made some really close friends because of it.
You get there, you redshirt your first year. Was that still rehab time for you, or were you really invested in scout team work?
That was not rehab time for me. By the time I got there, I was back in shape. I was back healthy and ready to play. But just transition from high school to college, it's a huge leap. Going from your senior year of high school to the freshman year of college, and it really takes some time to transition. So I kind of took that first year to get bigger, faster, stronger, do the best I could as far as learning the playbook. But we ended up having a coaching change, so everyone had to learn a new playbook, and I think that kind of benefited me. As far as picking up some of the things and everybody being on this almost the same level ground, and new coaches coming in and having to learn everyone's name and everyone's face as opposed to already having relationships and things like that. So I took that first year to hone in on my skills and, clean some things up and continue to improve so that when my opportunity did come, which was supposed to be in the spring, that I could take that opportunity and make the most of it.
Going into that redshirt year, maybe right when you got on campus, if I would have told
Mm-hmm.
you that at that point that Aaron Davis would have 45 starts for the Georgia Bulldogs, what would you have said to me?
Um, I wouldn't be surprised. I've always been one who's believed in myself. I believe in the preparation and things that I did and continue to do now, just because I was hungry. I didn't want to let my opportunity slip. That was always the goal of mine, even growing up when I was young, to make it NFL. So I knew going into college that I was going to put myself in the best position possible, and I wanted to make it to where there was no decision for the coach as far as who's going to play, who's not going to play. Um, I wanted to put myself in a position to where they had to play me, regardless whether I was a walk-on, 5-star, no star, or anything in between. So that was kind of my mindset going in, and so I wouldn't be surprised if you told me that. But everything that happens in between, now that's where the surprise is.
Do you remember the first time that you impressed, whether it be Coach Pruitt or Coach Richt, where you started to see that you were climbing on this depth chart, or was it a gradual thing?
I think I do. Just kind of when we had our film sessions, Coach Pruitt, he kind of wanted things, to be a certain way. And, he wanted to see guys who were able to play fast out there, but also grasp all the different concepts and things that they had in the playbook. And so, I really tried my best to do both of those things the best way that I could, and kind of, take the coaching that he gave out and try to put it on film. And so, I was starting to see some compliments within the film room. And that kind of, got my confidence up as I was, continue to try to climb up the depth chart.
So you impressed more mentally first than you even did physically, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I would consider myself a pretty good athlete. I mean, you kind of have to be to play the position that I played, but there were guys who were far more athletic than me, a lot more talented than me. So I knew if I was going to get advantage on somebody, it's going to have to be mentally before it ever became to physically.
So in 2014, you do get on the field. You have an interception
Mhm.
against Clemson, which I've read is
Yes.
still one of your favorite memories. How nervous were you before that game? And then just how
Oh,
fulfilling was it to kind of have that moment?
I mean, even my last game, you always get a little bit nervous before the game, get those butterflies. I think you kind of need that as far as it just leads you to have kind of a jolt of energy once the game starts. But that first game was wild. I mean, going from my high school, we had a big high school, but we weren't really that good, and so we didn't have large crowds or anything like that. But man, just to step into Sanford Stadium and for me to try to talk to Quincy, who was also a safety, like we were maybe 3, 4 feet away from each other and couldn't hear each other at all. I mean, he couldn't hear a word I said. I couldn't hear a word he said. The ground was shaking. Like I was definitely feeling it as far as the nerves. It being my first game, and it's not even like it was a game that versus a team in the lower competition. Like this was prime time, 7 p.m. ESPN. Everyone's going to be watching. This is the game of the night versus Clemson, who is just as prestigious as UGA. So the nerves are up, and unfortunately, I was able to, kind of answer the bell and make a play for my team. And to this day, that's still my most favorite moment since I've been at UGA.
How hyped was the sideline when you got back with the football?
Oh man, I mean, I don't know. I think the picture might still be like my banner on Twitter of when I was running, of when I was running back to the sideline. It's like it were like I felt a million slaps on my helmet. I'm like, man, everybody was crunk, everybody was live. We were jumping up and down. The first people to greet me were Brendan Langley and Quincy. It was just those two guys were my closest friends. Reggie Wilkerson, Reggie Carter. I mean, those were some of my closest friends, and everybody was so hyped. Everybody was so excited for that play.
And that ended up being a solid season, 10-3. Georgia
Mm-hmm.
had a couple 10-3 seasons back to back. 2015
Mm-hmm.
was such a crazy year, though. Georgia's
Yes.
favored against Alabama. It's raining
Yeah.
that day in Sanford
Mm-hmm.
Stadium. Both teams are just juggernauts, but Derrick Henry and the Alabama offensive line, which I still maintain is one of the best offensive lines that we've
Mm-hmm.
ever seen in college football. They come into Sanford Stadium. They have their day.
They did.
What happened?
That day, I can't. It's hard to say. I mean, we we came in. We kind of knew the game plan. We knew our game plan, and it was going to be a kind of a almost like a clash of the Titans. I think we were both maybe ranked in the for sure. We were both ranked in the top 10. I don't even know if top five, but it was supposed to be a really big game and supposed to be a really good performance out of both teams. And we started off hot. We started off strong. I mean, we were stoning them. They were trying to run the ball. They were trying to get some couple passes off, and we were having some really good drives on the defensive end. And then I don't know. It's just I think one time like Derrick Henry he bust out of the hole and he got like a 40-yard touchdown. It was just like I don't know. I think maybe the elements and just maybe the hype. I don't know if we just weren't ready for the moment, but we just weren't able to play a complete 4-quarter game. We started off hot, but it wasn't enough, and we weren't able to rebound. And it kind of like snowball effect on us. Once it started going downhill, it really went downhill, and I don't think that kind of rain helps, especially with the condition that everyone was under. So we just kind of weren't ready, and you saw that happen with the result of the game.
Well, and then it snowballed beyond that week too. You have the loss at Tennessee, which was just
Yeah,
such a tight, heartbreaking game, and
pressure.
then the loss against Florida. And by that point,
Mm-hmm.
that's when a lot of the outside noise for the coaching search or all that's
Mm-hmm.
beginning to bubble up. As a player, were you insulated from that? Did you ever inquire with assistant coaches? What's that process like when a coaching change is happening, but it's not necessarily public
Mm-hmm.
yet?
Yeah, so I mean, as a player, we heard a couple rumors and things like that. You always are gonna hear, things that are said in the media or said on TV. But me personally, I didn't believe it. I didn't think it would be true. Um, Mark Rick was such a staple for Georgia football. He was beloved by fans and of that nature. So I didn't believe it would happen. Definitely not that year if it were to happen. So I was kind of stunned. I was shocked by the news. And guys were kind of you know didn't really know what was going on, didn't know what the next steps would be, and we're just kind of patiently waiting to hear from our coach, our who's going to be our new coaching staff, and see what our athletic director was going to have for us. So
I mean, that's right in the middle of your Georgia career. I mean,
yeah,
were you ever nervous about what could happen? I mean, because that season there was just so much unsteadiness by the end of it.
mm, yeah. I mean, I wasn't really particularly nervous. I've been through the coaching staff once before, coming off my freshman year. So, I just looked at it as kind of a challenge as far as, me being able to meet with someone new and kind of do the same thing that I did my freshman year. I mean, coming into my sophomore year. So it was different this time around, but I wasn't particularly nervous about it.
So Kirby Smart gets hired. Do you remember the first time that he addressed the team?
Uh, Vaguely. I know. I mean, we hold all our meetings in the team meeting room, and I know I specifically remember our athletic director Greg McGarity coming in, making the decision. I mean, he had kind of talked to some of the leaders on the team before, as far as some of the if he had any candidates in mind or anything that we were looking for in particular. And so we have a great relationship with our athletic director, and he does a fantastic job at UGA. And he came in and addressed us and told us. And then I think when Coach Smart finally got there, it was just kind of a brief meeting, introduction. I think they were still filling out the staff at the time too. So just kind of a, brief introduction. And the meat of it was, I think we talked about like we were gonna have like kind of individual meetings with them, so everyone kind of got their time to, talk to him on a personal level, one on one.
How did that individual meeting go for you? Because I know one of the things with Kirby Smart is he's always got his eye on the secondary. I mean, that was his
Hmm.
position to coach for such a
Yes.
long time. Was that
Mm-hmm.
special for you? What can you remember about that meeting?
I mean, it kind of went how I expected. He came in, he kind of talked about what we were going to be doing going forward, and I think he probably shared the same message with a lot of guys as far as everyone's going to come in, everyone's going to have to prove themselves, and everyone's going to get a chance to compete. And the best players are going to be the ones who play, and that's who's going to be out there on the field. So that's kind of the vibe I got from him. I didn't know too much about him before that, except for the fact that you do see him on the sidelines of a lot of the Alabama games, and I did know that he was a Georgia guy and he was a secondary coach. So I was kind of eager to see what will happen going forward, and get ready to get back to work. And whenever we got a plan together as far as a team, and see how I could best fit into that plan.
How was the dynamic with Kirby Smart and Mel Tucker? I mean, was Kirby especially active in coaching secondary, or did he have so much responsibility with the entire team that most of it was left to Mel Tucker?
Well, he played DB, and that's what he coached. And even when he was the defensive coordinator at Bama, he still coached DBs and things like that. And that'll always be close to him. And so he definitely was an integral part of the whole game plan for the whole team. But specifically, I feel like as a DB, we saw him a little bit more in our meetings. Um, but the dynamic of Coach Smart and Coach Tucker was I thought it was a great one. I thought it was a great one for sure. I think Coach Tucker is a little more laid back. Coach Smart is a little more fiery, and so you kind of get that yin and yang between the two. And they were a great matching, and it really came together, especially when you saw it as far as on the field and in the practice and in the film rooms. Like we were able to really understand like. two different coaching styles, but kind of get the same message and understand that both of them are trying to lead us to the best position possible, and see how can we improve the defense, and more than ever, how can the DBs do the best job that they can as far as contributing to the team. So, uh, you know, great times between the two, and I think you kind of saw how great of a dynamic duo that they were because of some of the games and performances we were able to have on the field.
And so that leads into 2016 in 8-5 season. It's the first year of a new coach.
Hmm.
At what point did you
Hmm.
realize, hey, this team's got like you had talent? I mean,
Hmm.
2015 you guys go 10-3.
Hmm.
2016 doesn't go quite as well, but it seems like in that offseason, maybe it was the return of Lorenzo Carter and Davin Bellamy, Nick Chubb, Sony Michelle when they announced. I know there was a lot of energy around the program. At what
Hmm.
point do you realize how much talent there is on that team headed into 2017?
I mean, we always knew we had talent. Georgia is the state is a hotbed of talent. They have some of the greatest athletes of all time. Some of the best athletes, no matter what college they choose, come from the state of Georgia. And so, uh, us knowing that we had a whole bunch of talent on our team, and then us seeing other teams and seeing that these teams aren't just out pounding us. So we saw that, and we knew we were going to have some good recruiting classes coming in, some great freshmen who will be there to help, and then the guys making the decision to come back uh, and leave on a better note than just 8-5. I think that was kind of pivotal. That led a lot of guys being in senior roles and leadership roles, for that being their second or third year in a leadership role, as opposed to that was just their first or second. So I think that definitely helped us as far as galvanizing troops, understanding that we weren't going to be the same team that we were last year. This year is going to be completely different. We're going to get guys to buy in. We're going to get guys to do the right thing, and it's going to show up on the field.
So let's get into 2017, the trip to Notre
Yeah,
Dame. How special was
yeah,
that as just a lifelong college football fan? And then obviously with
yeah.
the way that the game turned out.
Yeah, I mean, just me personally, like growing up, Reggie Bush was my favorite player in college football. And I just remember watching the battles that USC had playing against Notre Dame. And so for us to actually be able to go there, I just remember there was so much hype surrounding the Notre Dame game just because all the tradition, all the championships they have, and the great players that have come there. But then there's also us and everything that we bring to the table, and that it was going to kind of be a clash. And then at that time, like, it was the whole quarterback situation with Jake Fromm, that being his first game. And, people really didn't expect us to do that much just because, we were coming off an 8-5 season, so they didn't really know what to expect out of us. And we were up for the challenge. We knew that it was going to be a good game. We knew that we were going to have to play our hearts out, and just going into that atmosphere and playing against them, that was definitely, I think that was the kickstart really of our season for us to get that kind of a big win. And we didn't know how good Notre Dame was going to be when we first played against them, but you see how they turned out at the end of the year. You see that they were really, really good football team. So for us to get that win right after having a quarterback change and all the different dynamics and stories that were surrounding our team was really huge for us. And so I really loved that game, and we definitely showed out.
How did Terry Godwin catch that football? Because, I mean, on the sideline, you
Man,
guys had to go nuts.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, as a defense, when our offense is out there, we try to, go over what happened that last drive, talk about things that we need to improve on, things that we saw out there. But it's like, every now and then, you pick up at the big board, and just to see that replay of him doing that catch, um, I mean, that's crazy, but it's not as crazy just because we've seen Terry do catches like that all the time in practice. I mean, he was practicing that since he was with like Malcolm Mitchell and things like that. It's just, I don't know. That's what those guys do. That's what the receivers, kind of pride themselves on, being to make those tough catches. It pays off in the games. And so it was a memorable catch for sure. I think it was up for an ESPY or something like that. So
Yeah.
um, That was a great catch by Terry, and for him to pull that off in the game under the lights was huge.
You beat Notre Dame. You go on to the Mississippi State game in Athens,
Mm-hmm.
and a
Mm-hmm.
decent amount of hype for that game as well. Mississippi State had a
Yeah,
really talented team, and it
they
seemed like
did.
there was a little bit of talk back and forth. It seemed like
Mm-hmm.
quite a statement game. Did you guys feel that way?
We thought so. It was too. Every year, you have to play somebody out from the SEC West, and so Mississippi State was a really good team coming out of the SEC West. And so there was some hype around that, and there was hype around, kind of some of the stories and things that people were talking about. And, you had Jonathan Abram, who, was at UGA, and then he ended up going to Mississippi State. And I think he had some comments about comments about us. And so there was kind of some banter going back and forth between the two teams. But we were going out there. We're going to get ready to play a tough physical game, and that's what we end up doing. And we end up, beating them pretty handily.
Season's going along swimmingly. You get to Auburn. What happened at Jordan
Mm.
Hare Stadium? Because that kind of came out of nowhere based on how Georgia was playing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, another one. It was almost similar to what happened to us versus 2015 in Alabama. It was just like kind of a big game for us, and these are kind of the games that we need to start winning as Georgia football. Those are kind of games that we can't afford to lose. But we have been, I think we're undefeated all the way up into that game,
Yep.
and they just came with it. I mean, Auburn, they came with it. They had the energy. I mean, they had I think they, even before the season, they were advertising their new, like, big board, big screen that they had, and they had the music playing. They were dancing on the sidelines, and, they kind of earned it. They earned everything that they got. We knew that we didn't really do the things that we needed to do, and that was kind of the reason why. We felt like them winning that game was almost strictly due to the mistakes that we were making, and them just being able to take advantage of those mistakes. So the score was bad. We didn't feel like we necessarily played bad as a team, as far as doing the things, as far as playing hard, playing physical. It was more of, we didn't really execute the game plan that the coaches had out for us.
What was the first day of practice like after a game like that? Because I've heard from a lot of players that when you have a performance like that, it can kind of help you refocus and kind of get things back right. Was it a difficult practice? Was it kind of a come to Jesus meeting? I mean, what was happening there?
No, I don't remember it being super difficult. We try to practice the same no matter what happened the day before. We kind of have like a 24-hour rule, as far as, like, you get 24 hours to celebrate, or you get 24 hours to soak. But after that, we're kind of making our corrections, and we're moving on to the next opponent. Because if you try to, like, you know be completely, if you get completely upset over what happened last week, that can affect your performance the next week. And if you're so ecstatic, about what happened last week, that can also affect your performance for the next week. So that was not something that we wanted to do. That was something that the coaches continued to stress, as far as, get back to work, do the things that we know how to do. Um, and get back in it. So that's what we did. Of course, the coaches, they continue to challenge us, try to get us to take it up to the next level, get even better than what we were, or what we thought we were, because that's how you get beat. You start feeling yourself. You start thinking that you know you can't be beat or anything like that, and then you go out there and you let Auburn embarrass you. So that was something that the coaches continue to challenge us on going forward, and we were able to pick that up and use that going forward, which led us to eventually beating them in the SEC championship.
Yeah, so 3 weeks later, you have that chance to get your vengeance.
Rematch.
Man, I have to, before the game, I mean, guys always like to have a second chance before they,
Mm-hmm.
play a team that they've already lost to. That's even high school mentality that I've seen, that if you
Mm-hmm.
get to play a team again in state playoffs, people love doing that. How hyped
Mm-hmm.
were you guys before the SEC championship?
We wanted them. We wanted them bad, just because they beat us, and they were kind of riding their high horse. They were having a great season. I think they beat Bama too.
Yep.
So that was how they got to the SEC championship, and we were happy when they beat them because um, we knew it was our chance to get our rematch, our chance to, go back at them and see who can come out top, and see if, their win was legit and whether, they could actually prove that they were actual better football team than us. So I remember it being, guys being pretty happy that we saw them again in the national champion. I mean, in the SEC championship, and I think that was part of the reason why we had the performance that we had.
Man, your defense was so physical in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, just physically
Mm-hmm.
wore down Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
Was that like in your minds going into it? Is we're tougher than them and we're going to prove it?
That's always in our minds. That's always the first thing that we want to do. We want to prove that we're tougher than the other team. We want to show that we can instill some fear into them, because those are the things that changes, God's mindset. No one wants to be hit. Nobody wants to be the nail. Everybody wants to be the hammer. And so, if you're able to go out there and be the hammer, that affects how someone blocks you, how somebody runs their route, how somebody, you know, tries to tackle you when they're going against offense. So that's something we always want to do, and we definitely showed that night. And that was a tremendous atmosphere playing in the Mercedes-Benz Dome. I mean, that was the first time I had ever been in it since they built it up, and that atmosphere was crazy.
So that takes you to the Rose Bowl. Obviously, it became one of
Mm-hmm.
the greatest games in UGA
Mm-hmm.
history. One of the most storied stadiums that you can play in against a great opponent,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got the Heisman Trophy winner over there. Man, like, what are your memories just from that game? I don't know. A lot of people forget Roquan Smith had such a great stop to
Mm-hmm.
kind of force
Yeah.
late in that game, and then you've got
Mm-hmm.
Lorenzo's block and Sony
Mm-hmm.
running. There's so much to go to. Where does your memory go when you start thinking of that game?
Man, it goes to that first half for us. I mean, we were kind of all over the place. We were running around like hooligans out there. They had that fast-paced offense going. They were bam, 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 bam. I mean, they were scoring points so fast on us. And we had practiced against that, but we just weren't able to stop it. We weren't able to execute the way we needed to. And, being down at the half was really tough. And our offense really helped us out as far as going forward in the second half and putting up some points on the board. But one of the forgotten heroes that I have to shout out is Tay Crowder. Tay Crowder, when they tried to do a squib kick and they kind of messed it up, and Tay was able to catch the ball from the front line and drop down. And then on top of that, Rod came in and hit a boomer of a field goal to give us those 3 points. That was kind of a little confidence boost, a little something that we needed, and that kind of propelled us going into the second half. So that was a great play by both of them. And it comes to find out we needed those 3 points. We needed every single one of those points just for us to get into overtime. And the offense kind of had our back, and that was something that we really needed that game. And then the second half, we started, making more and more plays. I mean, we got an interception, and we were stopping them, and more importantly, we were stopping their run because we were doing pretty well in the pass. But we were able to stop their run, and that really, really helped us. I mean, you saw all the kind of things they had to do as far as trick plays and, double reverse, throw to the quarterback, those kind of things that they were doing just to kind of score the football. But we were out there and we were battling. We got the blocked field goal, like you said. I mean, to this day, I still have a picture. Well, plenty of people have either sent me the picture, and a couple people got it framed for me of like this sack that we had on Baker Mayfield. It was like me, Lorenzo, and Roquan. We all three of us got him, and it's kind of a memorable photo for me. And some people got it framed for me, and I have it hanging up.
Take me into the locker room after that game, or maybe it's the team playing the next day. I mean, you guys, you just accomplished what really no team had done since the early '80s. Georgia, you're going to a national championship. You just won in one of the most historic places in college football. What was that like as a team? The celebration, the mentality, knowing that your season is still going, and everyone
Yeah.
else other than Alabama, their season has ended.
Mm. And even after that game was over, we still didn't know who we were going to be playing yet. We didn't know whether it was going to be Alabama or Clemson. And so we got in the locker room, and we had a fiesta. We definitely enjoyed ourselves while we were in the locker room. It was a great time for us, but it was kind of almost cut short. Like normally we get that 24, but it was almost kind of cut short just because we were way out there in California and we knew we had to go all the way back to Atlanta. And so, with that being said, it's like we knew we had to hop on a plane and get all the way back as quick as we could, so we could start preparing for whoever we were going to play. But besides that, yeah, we guys had a great time, and it was definitely one of the more memorable games, probably the most fun game I'd ever been a part of, and just to have the ups and downs and the roller coaster of that game were crazy that we were able to still come out on top. I mean, I just remember, which if they actually watched the replay, they probably could have called 30 penalties on us because when Sony kind of broke free on that sideline, I think before he even got in the end zone, half the team was already on the field, running up and down, throwing their helmets, doing all kinds of crazy things. So that was a great game for sure.
Man, Sony is so chill. I don't know how he was. I mean, he did his jazz hands like he always does, but he
Yeah,
stood there and let it all come to him. And man,
yeah.
I don't think a lot of people would just do it that way. It
Mhm.
was really awesome of a way for him to do that.
I definitely agree. I mean, Sony, he's normally a pretty chill guy. It takes a lot for him to get, really, really fired up or riled. But that's him. That was kind of his thing all year as far as the jazz hands, and I'm sure that was a great moment for him. Maybe one of his best moments in college football.
Well, now he's a Super Bowl champion too, so he's got a lot of those moments, just like a
Oh
lot of you
yeah,
guys do.
yeah.
So you get to Atlanta, national championship, the grandest stage that
Mhm.
there is for you guys.
Mhm.
Georgia gets a lead. We all know what happens in the second half when Alabama changes quarterbacks. Were you surprised
Mhm.
to see a quarterback change?
No, we weren't surprised. We had game plan for him. We know there were talks about Alabama possibly doing a quarterback change even while they were playing Clemson. And so we weren't surprised at all. We had game plan him. We had, you know, used some of our scout team players to kind of mimic a quarterback change, and so we knew what we had going forward, and that it was a possibility. Even at halftime of the game, before the decision was actually announced, and we saw Tua come out there. Our coaches said, like, don't be surprised if they do a coaching change. Do not be surprised. And so we weren't shocked when it happened.
So it does happen. He gets out there. He plays really loosely, and I think that was one of the
Yes.
surprises. He's a true freshman in the second half of the
hmm
national championship, trying to make a comeback, and he's just slinging the football around.
hmm
I'm not saying you guys were surprised or caught off guard by that, but at some point you have to just kind of respect that a freshman's willing to do that in that spot, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I give him great respect for being able to step up and come in the game as a freshman in the national championship game. Like, who ever thinks that that'll be their first, opportunity to show themselves? And so, for him to come in the game and not be shy or timid or anything like that, to come in the game and kind of let it loose, let it all hang out, that was a testament to him and his character and his confidence in himself and his abilities.
Do you think there was ever a lack of focus from your team as far as you had the lead? I've
Mhm.
heard some people say when you get complacent, that's when things like that can happen. Did you
Mhm.
feel like any of that was happening, or was it just Alabama making plays?
I think Alabama was making some plays, but I do to this day do feel like we kind of let them off the hook. Some of the things that we were doing in the first half, we just weren't doing it in the second half. I don't know if guys got complacent or what, but from my perspective, I did see like a kind of a change in us, and we stopped playing as aggressive and as hard as we did in the first half, and we were almost kind of playing safe. And that's not what got us to that point. That's not how we got to the national championship. That's not how we, shut them out in the first half. So I did start to sense um, kind of a difference in the things that we were doing, and we just weren't executing the way we should have.
Do you think that that's just like a process of who's been on that stage before? That Alabama had been in that position many times, and it was Georgia's first time in quite a while.
Could be, very well could be. I can't rule that out. But I mean, guys, we played in big games before. We had shown that we could show up in big games. Because you look at the SEC championship and then the national semifinals. Like we've shown that we can show up in the big games and get it done. And so it shouldn't be any different going to the national championship game because I talk about all the time, like, that's the longest season I've ever had. So at that point, as big as the national championship was, to me, it kind of felt like just another game, just the next game. And so we shouldn't have let that kind of thing get to us, but I think it might have.
What was your perspective, your vantage point on that final play in overtime?
Oh, so, I mean, I just remember they were kind of in a trip set, so they had three receivers to the right, single receiver to the left. Well, from my perspective, it's three receivers to the left, one receiver to the right, and I kind of had the flats in that play, so I didn't really have any big responsibility, and I kind of did my job, gave the receiver a little shove, give him a little push, and then I kind of snapped my head to get my eyes back on the quarterback, and then I just turn and I see like a launch of the ball. I'm tracking it in the air, looking up, and then all of a sudden I just see the Alabama player just come in underneath it and catch it. Nobody's there to stop him. It's just like, I don't know. I guess I don't know if I went dead or numb, but I kind of just stood there for at least 30 seconds in disbelief of what happened. I mean, I thought for sure that the game was going to be over. We just got a sack. We were up three. We scored. All we had to do was stop them. We knew that they were going to be desperate, especially because their field goal kicker didn't make that field goal before overtime. He had to be nervous, and so we knew that they were going to be desperate in their approach, and that all we had to do was get the stops that we needed to, and especially after the sack, I thought the game was pretty much over for us. But just to see that play happen and everything that happened afterward was still wild this day. I still remember how I felt, still remember, the visual. And that was part of the reason why, I didn't even go back to the SEC championship last year. I could have went, but I don't know. I still kind of felt the way stepping into the Mercedes-Benz Dome. I wasn't ready yet, so I kind of watched my dogs on TV, but that was a crazy game nonetheless, and I'm sure the fans did enjoy it. Everybody who's a fan of college football had to enjoy that national championship game. It was almost every bit of a roller coaster that the Rose Bowl was.
It's like time freezes in that moment, and you
Just
don't know how to react.
It does. You don't.
Man, the hump will be gotten over at some point because now you're talking 2012, 2015, 2017, 2018. Georgia and Alabama, they're too talented for them all to be going one way like that. So maybe it was a good thing you didn't go back last year because that probably would have hurt to see the reverse.
Yeah.
I've already kept you a little longer than I said I would, so I want to get to some quick hitters in here.
Okay.
DeAndre Baker, when he got to campus from Miami, when did you know he was special?
I mean, I kind of knew his approach. Kind of knew a little bit about him, just as far as because he came in a little bit later than some of the other freshmen. And when he got there immediately, you could see kind of how aggressive he was. And in my high school, I grew up around a lot of guys who were from Miami, so I kind of knew how most of the athletes were who come from there and how they go about themselves. And you just saw a huge transformation of his maturity and his approach to the game. The improvement that he had from his his freshman year to his sophomore, junior year going forward it was absolutely amazing to see. I was super happy for him because he was someone who almost got lost in the shuffle of everyone else. But I think an injury happened and he was able to step up and make the most of his opportunity. And that's kind of what you want to see out of some of these young guys that they're talented and they think that just because it doesn't happen as soon as I get here that I need to transfer. And so he was one of the guys who kind of stuck it out. And he let his situation play out, and when he got his opportunity, he made the most of it, and you see how that turned out for him. Now he's a first-round draft pick. He's at the New York Giants, and I expect him to have a long, great career. So uh, I'm super happy for him.
What's the craziest, most impressive play that you remember from practice at Georgia?
Uh, Probably him. I mean, he's excellent at the line of scrimmage. I just I remember him a couple times, like whether we were doing one on ones or something like that. Just him kind of jacking up some receivers and almost tossing them out of bounds. Like that was kind of his thing. Like he loved to kind of get his hands on you at the line of scrimmage and control where the receiver goes. And he was super physical. So that was something that he did, and we used to compete, go at it with our receivers, and so um, I remember him jacking a couple people up. So that was his model, that was his thing.
What's the hardest hit that you ever delivered?
Hardest hit I ever delivered, maybe when I knocked myself out versus Georgia Tech. It was against JJ Green. He was at UGA.
Yeah.
We're still friends to this day. He transfers to Tech. He's playing running back for them, and we're both. I'm coming from center field trying to track him down. He's on like a sweep, and then we both like had to cover at least 50 yards before we collided against each other. And I knocked myself out. I had a concussion, and he knocked himself out. He had a concussion, so that may be the hardest hit that I've ever been a part of.
Describe to me what it's like to try to tackle Nick Chubb.
Oh man, that's hard. That's hard. Just because, I mean, Nick. I mean, he looks like Hercules out there, and so the first thing you expect when he goes at you is like, all right, this guy's gonna try to run me over, so I gotta kind of brace myself. Hopefully I'm able to wrap him up, and he trips over me, and then it's like he's out there and he's just so quick, and so it's like you think he's gonna run you over, and he gives you like one cut, he's just gone because he ran like 10.6 or something in high school. I mean, he runs a 4.40, so it's like he is so hard to tackle, even when you get your hands around him. And the hardest part is even trying to touch him. It's like you have to get your whole body on him because an arm tackle is not going to do it. A leg is not going to do it. It's going to hurt you more than it hurts him. And I've seen him. He's a fitness freak. He does everything in the weight room. He does everything on the practice field, on the turf fields, all that. So it's just, that's a hard guy to tackle.
Did you ever stop and just watch what Roquan Smith was doing on defense in that 2017 year? Because he was a freak.
I mean, we appreciate it, especially me kind of working. I used to be at the star position, so I'd be kind of closer to him. So I'd be more in the action, more in the fray. And so just to see him and me thinking that, okay, this is going to be my play to make. And, maybe it is my play to make, but he just comes out of nowhere like a missile and makes a play like right before you do. You're like, man, this guy is special. I mean, and then you watch him on tape, watch him on film. Like he plays tenacious. He's taking on 2 or 3 blocks, shedding them, and then still making a tackle for a loss. Like he's a special player, and you understand why he went first round. You understand why he's starting on the Chicago Bears. Like those kind of guys are definitely special players, and though they come few and far. So I'm sure the Chicago Bears are super excited that they have him, and I'm glad I had a chance to play with him.
Who was the team prankster?
The team prankster. That's too hard to say. I mean, the guys. I mean, we had a lot of funny guys on the team, and so I can't really call just one person the team prankster.
Is there a guy that ran their mouth the most, that just talked the most junk?
Kind of receivers. I'm gonna say the receivers. I'm gonna call out Terry Godwin and Javon Wims and say those two guys are some people that run their mouths just because they're receivers. Receivers think that they're always open. They think even when they're not open, you could just throw it up and they're gonna catch it over you. So the DBs, we had a whole bunch of battles versus the receivers, and we loved it, especially going in practice. A few times coaches had to break us up. A few times coaches had to tell us, stop going back and forth with each other. That's kind of the competitive atmosphere that we had. So I would say those two are the biggest talkers.
Who was the toughest wide receiver that you had to cover, whether it be a guy that you saw in practice at Georgia or one of your opponents?
I mean, I've played some great receivers. When I was a freshman, I had to go against Devontae Parker. So that was a huge matchup for me just because he was just like a senior or a junior, and then I was a freshman. Malcolm Mitchell, to this day, though, probably is the hardest receiver that I've ever had to guard. I mean, he was great off the line. He was super fast. His routes were always crispy. It was hard to read him. He was very unorthodox in his approach. So I think he was probably the best receiver I had to face, whether on our team or against anybody else.
I'll get you out of here on this. I'd love for you to put your analyst hat on and just kind of tell me about the
Mm-hmm.
current team because you still know a lot of the guys out there, whether it
Mm-hmm.
be Richard LeCount and J.R. Reed in the defensive backfield
Yeah.
or Jake Fromm coming back for his third season at
Mm-hmm.
quarterback, DeAndre Swift at running back with Brian Herrien,
Mm-hmm.
or you mentioned Tate Crowder
Yes.
already. What's your
Yeah.
impression of the current team and their potential?
I love it. I love it. I mean, just having our season in 2017 going to the national championship, and you think about all the guys who came back that were seniors, and then to see all that class leave out, you would think that the next year that we would have like a down year, and it's like we were right back in it. Very well could have been one of the top four teams again last year. So that just shows me the kind of talent, the kind of players that we had at UGA because uh, in our quote unquote down year, we're still in contention. So it's like you never really have a down year. And so I fully expect the team to be even better than they were last year. And hopefully they can, eclipse what we were in 2017. They have some great guys there. The young people who had to step up last year are 1 year older. They're returning a lot of guys, and they're bringing in. You see every year they have one of the top recruiting classes, so that means you're bringing in talent underneath. Those are guys who are going to push the people who are in positions above them, and so I fully expect us to be right back in it. And I'm always going to pick UGA to be the national championship every single year. So that's going to be my pick. You can pencil in today. I'm going to feel the same way the whole year, and I think they can get it done. I think they can get it done. You've named, quite a few notable players, and they're out there, and I think they're going to compete, and they're going to get it done this year.
Just from a defensive backfield perspective, though, what does it mean to have Richard LeCount, J.R. Reed, the
Mm-hmm.
amount of talent that's under them, maybe more unproven younger guys? But what does it mean to have that kind of leadership back there? Because so many of the plays that are made, or more importantly, the plays that are prevented, happen in that defensive backfield where you played. So when you look at them, what does that mean for Georgia to have them starting this year?
It's huge. It's huge. I always think that, when you have a defensive backfield that can play at a high elite level, I mean, it really opens up what you're able to do as a defense. I mean, I just remember watching Darrell Revis and hearing Rex Ryan talk about how he doesn't even, have to worry about one side of the field just because Darrell Revis is going to lock that down, and he can do so much more with the other side, and scheme up different ways to attack and go against the offense. So when you think about guys like J.R. Reed, Richard LeCount, Tyreek McGee, um, Eric Stokes, he improved tremendously from what I saw him his freshman year into what is now, and I think he has a bright future ahead of him. I think he's a name that people need to expect to be on one of these all SEC teams. Every time I see him, all he does is make plays. All he does is make plays for the team. He gets hyped, he gets excited, and he does his job, and that's what we need out there. And then, of course, like I said, they got young players underneath, but, the core, the leadership that you have, and someone like JR, he's going to go out there. I already know he's going to get the job done. He's going to do his job first and foremost, and then he's going to help other guys in the defensive backfield do their job. So I'm super excited to see what happens. I still keep in contact with all those guys. I hit them up, let them know that I'm rooting for them. Let them know that that I think they can get it done, and that they're special players, and they need to just go out there on the field and do it.
Well, Aaron, I think the reaction from this podcast from our fans for you is, a lot of people do treat college football like a business transaction, which in some cases it should be. It's a lifestyle that people can develop. In your case, though, I can tell it's something that you were definitely passionate about and that you're still passionate about UGA. So I think our fans will connect with you on that. And so, man, I appreciate your time for making this a priority for us.
Sounds great, man. Thank you for having me.
Big thanks to Aaron Davis for joining us here on the Dog Days podcast. And thank you for your support of our podcast. We ask that you please rate, subscribe, review wherever you listen to podcasts, because the bigger that this thing gets, the more stories that we're able to mine and tell from former dogs of the past. If you're one of those, hit me up on Twitter at Dayne Young. That's DayneYoung, and we'll get you on here to tell your stories from your era. Make sure you're tuning in to UGAsports.com. We've got new things being posted daily, whether it be recruiting, analysis, getting you all prepped for the 2019 season, and then things like this where we chat with some of the big players from the past. Until next time, I'm Dayne Young.